Brother,
Here
we're
we
back,
are.
man.
We
What's
are
up?
back. Man, I've lost count on what episode this is. It's 7? Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
7 or 8 or
Episode.
something like that, man. We had that stinking Marine on Stalker, then then last week we had the Air Force guy, K-Wright enlisted Jesus. In between, we had some special. We had Griff and Colton Smith, and everything. Awesome. We just keep popping around here and getting after some folks, man. So how was your week, brother?
Man, it was good. It was good, brother. It kicked off this week, at full pace right out the gate. Working hard over here at Veterans Lending Group and educating and, across the board there. A highlight of last weekend, I got to go on a midnight boat ride.
I know. You didn't call me up, man. What kind of outfit you running over there, brother?
It was one of those things. We had the little 𝗏𝗏 grill pop-up grill, and then it was like, hey, you guys, who wants to go on a boat? And I was like, I do. And we piloted out underneath the bridge there, the Narrows Bridge, and then just came back in. But yeah, man, it was a good time. It was a good time. We got to get you and Sandra out there. I'm telling you.
Hey, I'm all for it. But hey, let me tell you something, brother. Sandra and I had a good time this week too, because we finally got out and we got some shooting in at the range, man. And
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. I got my Sig Sauer P320 going. Sandra got her Micro 9 Kimber Bel Air version going. But I got to tell you a quick story about the range, brother.
Let's hear it.
So Sandra and I go in there and we get ready to shoot. And these two ladies, they make you go in the first time you go into the range over here off Pacific. You got to go watch a video for safety, And there were two ladies in there. They didn't have any weapons, and they're watching this video. And so they left before Sandra and I did. So they were in line in front of us. And so we're out there. We brought our own pistols. We brought our own ammunition. I had put Sandra through some pre-marksmanship instruction. She was golden. And these two ladies are up there at the counter. Now, the two guys working behind the counter, there was 3 of them. 2 of them are former Stryker Brigade guys that I know, and one's a former 3rd Ranger Battalion guy that I know very well. Either I've served with them in combat or I visited them at their organizations. So we had a chat right when we came in. Anyways, one of the guys asked these 2 ladies, so what experience do you have with firearms, or where do you have experience with firearms? And they said, one of them said, in the streets. And so because they were going to rent their pistols and buy their ammunition, they had to go through to make a certification, kind of a little mini test to see if they got operate. And watching one of these girls, man, she grabs the pistol, she got her finger on the trigger, she's trying to put the magazine in backwards and everything. Oh. And that dude didn't miss a beat. Politely, he just grabbed the firearms. Both of the ladies were screwed up. Grabbed the firearms and said, ladies, have a nice day. Thank you for coming in. And out they went. My point is this, man, and you know this, brother. The safe, effective use of firearms comes through safe, effective instruction. And what you learn in the streets ain't exactly going to make you a good marksman. So it was all good, man. We got our pistol shooting in, and it was a great time, man. As a matter of fact, we're probably going to go back tomorrow, man.
Oh, nice. I need to get mine in too, man. I have to. Wait. Yep, of course. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there,
Yeah. Absolutely, brother.
So so obviously we had a great show last week. And who do we got coming up this week?
Hey, we kind of changed gears here, Ron. You are a huge advocate, not only through our organization, Veterans Lending Group, but with veteran employment and veteran training and dealing with transition. It's one of the things I'm focusing on too. So we have, the Army does this senior fellowship program. The Sergeant Major of the Army does, and he puts Army Sergeant Majors in places like the Department of Veteran Affairs and also Department of Education. And there's also one at Department of Labor in the Veteran Employment and Training Service. And we've got him today. We've got Sergeant Major Chris Rick that's joining us today that's going to talk everything transition and veteran employment and training. And I will tell you something else about this guy. He's a paratrooper. He's jumped out of airplanes. There he is. He's also a Mangudai warrior. You know,
there he is.
We'll get to that later on. And he is just a great stand-up guy, and it's great to have him on here.
Welcome, Chris. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for that, guys. And you guys talking about Pacific Northwest. I was up there for 6 years, and I'm a 4-2 striker alumni. Ended up the Tacomas Narrows Bridge, all the the ranges around there. It's wonderful. But I'm coming to you from the National Capital Region here in D.C., where I'm currently serving as a senior fellow in Department of Labor. So a little different environment out here right now. I'm going on week 9 of working for my new office/garage, for Belvoir. So, making it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited today to talk with the group and really help in this national emergency, and specifically for our transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses from an employment standpoint. So look forward to the chat today.
Yeah, man, I gotta say is a lot has definitely changed since the time I've got out, and hell, even with as much work as I do in the community and helping service members transition out, I had no idea that this even existed. I mean, this is awesome, first of all, but when in the hell did this start, and how and what? How, yeah, please. What's going on?
Give you a rundown. So previous Sergeant Major of the Army Daily, really at the height of transitioning service member unemployment in the 2011, 2012 timeframe, all of the services combined were paying almost $1 billion out of DoD budget for recently transitioned service member unemployment.
Wow.
And more importantly, our transitioning service members at that time were not moving into meaningful careers post-service. So, he came at that time to the Chief Staff of the Army, Secretary of the Army, said, "Hey, Chief, you have senior fellows working out here in academia and think tanks and getting PhDs and doing all this great stuff. I want to put a very, senior sergeant major in a federal agency that has the most connective tissue back to the services to really help us with this problem, to shore up the existing lines of communication and then find those friction points and really go after them and start to operationalize some of those great ideas and, move us towards a position where we're better preparing our transitioning service members for post-service employment." That was really the kind of inception of the fellowship. I am the 4th fellow in Department of Labor. I'm the first of the 2-year cohort. We also have a Sergeant Major of the Army Senior Fellow in Veteran Affairs. Jeff, he's the second one in there. And then we also have one in Department of Education, and he's also the second. Steve's in there. So figure the 3 federal agencies that have the most connective tissue back to Department of Defense for service member and military spouse support, they pick us up from title and authority in the transition space. So think TAP space. I'm getting ready to transition. Department of Labor owns everything that has to do with transitioning service member and veteran employment. VA, everything that has to do with benefits, be it healthcare benefits or disability benefits, home loan, GI Bill, all that. And then Department of Education is the actual one that executes the GI Bill and has a lot to do with some of the other initiatives that the services are doing to accredit their higher education institutions. So this has been going for a little while. Conditions have obviously changed over time. We went from 2011, almost $1 billion of unemployment insurance that DoD was paying, to 2019, less than $130 million DoD-wide. And now we're swinging back up because of obviously the national emergency and COVID response. So, that's kind of the history of the fellowship programs and why we're here and, what we're doing.
Hey, so Ron, So when I learned about this, when I was the SEAC,
Mhm.
you know, there's nothing better than OPM, right? Other people's money.
Yeah,
So
that's
this
right.
was the first year of the Army's program, but I said, I got it. I'm in the Army, but I'm the SEAC. So Chris, brought Chris in and I said, look, brother, you're a huge asset and we're going to get you out across all the services. And Chris has made a huge impact, not only within the Army, but with the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Coast Guard, but also military spouses. He's done a lot. And I used to bring him in all the time for my Defense Senior Enlisted Leader Council events. And he would talk to the Service Senior Enlisted, the Combatant Command and Subunified Command Senior Enlisted, but also the last one we did, he had all their spouses as well. So he's been a huge asset, and it's great to have him on here today, man.
Yeah, man, this is incredible. Like, so, I mean, what is it that you do for your role, and how do you actually, you know, push support out? Is it with information and resources and a top down approach with just the Army, or is it DoD wide, or?
Yeah, so I really kind of run on 3 lines of effort in my role within Department of Labor. One of them is inform and educate our senior enlisted leaders, Department of Defense wide. I do that in a lot of different ways based on each of the services. At the request of Sergeant Major Marine Corps, I go down to Quantico every time they have a first sergeant's course, because they bring all their first sergeants to Quantico for that. So I brief them following their Marine and Family Programs in-service briefing on kind of, all right, here's the macro level Department of Labor in-service opportunities that they advise, and then in the transition space and post-service. Same thing with the Coast Guard Chiefs Academy, working through educating their senior enlisted leaders. The Army, it's mainly at the nominative leaders course level, moving into really the kind of Sergeant Majors Academy level world. Within SOCOM, working directly with the Joint Special Operations University to educate the joint senior enlisted leaders within SOCOM on what programs exist, how to take care of their joint service members, and kind of move that ball forward. So that's one aspect. The second is to really help the agencies within Department of Labor, Veteran Employment Training Services being one of 11 agencies. So they are responsible for the voice of veterans in Department of Labor, and the really touch point for Department of Labor and all of its, you know, employment assets outside of DOL for the veteran space. So helping them to better establish and really understand the impact of their connective tissue into Department of Defense. I'll give you 2 examples. So all of DoD is involved in credentialing, both institutional credentialing. So if I go through my service school, MOS or A school, whatever it is, there are some civilian credentials that go along with that in cases, and voluntary credentialing in the form of credentialing opportunity online. That entire program is advised to DoD by the Employment and Training Administration within DOL. So they really focus in on industry recognized credentials. There's a little less than 1,600 that exist in there for service members to go after, but they're the ones that are highly sought after in the industry sectors outside of DoD. And, you know, Department of Labor really funnels that information into DoD. So that's one kind of bridging area where DoD is the supported from DOL kind of organization in the interagency space. The other is the United Services Military Apprenticeship, USMAP.
Yeah.
This thing has been around since the 1970s, and not a lot of folks know about it. The Navy started it. It is the second largest registered apprenticeship through DOL nationwide. It's got a little over 108,000 apprentices that are currently enrolled. Over 80,000 of them are sailors, because they've really been going down this road for a while. But the rest of the services have caught on to this. Wow. And what it is it's a validation of in-service experience for a service member. So if I'm a nuclear propulsion system specialist within the Navy, and I spend 2,500 hours doing my job, it is logged in and goes into this system. And at the end of that time and or skill requirement, that individual receives a certificate of apprenticeship at the journeyman level that's signed by the Secretary of Labor. So, you know, hey, if I'm going to go apply for a job in Middle America and work at a nuclear power plant under Department of Energy, I'm going to walk in. We actually had this happen. Here's a little vignette. A recently transitioned petty officer first class who applied for a job in this field, did not have her certificate, called Department of Labor vets. They went upstairs and found it in the logs, printed it off and sent it to her. It was a $30,000 bump in her salary walking into that job. I mean, that's the kind of that in-service
solid
programs and technical advisory from Department of Labor kind of happen. So those are some of the roles that I play. And then obviously advising on the transition assistance program and what's happening in the transition space. The NDA 19 made some very distinct changes to it. It basically broke it apart and extended it, so you're not drinking through a fire hose for 5 days straight trying to absorb all this, you know, from your transition. The Department of Labor has 3 touch points in the overall TAP program that are specific to employment. So really kind of give the litmus test on, hey, is this working? Is it not? You know, I traveled with the assistant secretary. We went down to Norfolk in January and actually sat through 2 days of TAP at Norfolk, which is the largest transition location for all of DOD, and got the ground truth. Like, hey, is this working out well? These changes we made with NDA 19?
Nice.
Or, you know, tune some things up.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of the role that I play in the Department of Labor, connecting back to the service.
Hey, Chris, so you talked about transitioning service members. You talked about TAP. So let's talk about military spouses. What's DOL vets doing to assist military spouses?
All right, so our military spouses are the force behind the force, right? 53% of the joint force married. Service members join the service, and more than ever, military families choose to remain in service. So this is a key strategic, you know, point that we really, I have a military spouse for 20 years, and she's like, where's this been all our, you know, life in service? But really doubling down on that and making a concerted effort to ensure that a military spouse is able to gain and maintain meaningful employment in a career as they move with their service member from camp, post, and station to wherever it is they're going. The military spouse statistical move rate is 10 times that of their civilian counterpart. Mainly, the Department of Labor, to this point, has been focused primarily on occupational licensure reciprocity and moving occupational licenses across state lines for our professional spouses that have some form of a license. That's anywhere from hairdresser all the way up to physician.
Okay.
State licensing procedure that you go through, and they're not all the same. So a lot of work has been done in that space. Very recently, though, labor has kind of shifted, doubled down on that, and said, look, we need to really prepare our military spouses for employment in the same way that we're putting all this time and energy into preparing our transitioning service members for employment. So they're currently developing a military spouse specific employment curriculum as part of the transition program. Now, obviously, this will work when they transition from one base to another, but it's really looking hard at the transition with their service member out of the military into civilian life. That's in the initial phases right now. They've gotten through the analysis of it, put together a extremely good product and a good look at the entire ecosystem. And then it looks like by the end of this fiscal year, they're going to have both in-person, virtual, and online deliverable curriculum that brings together all of the employment space of military spouses so that our military spouses can get something out of a employment app type of curriculum, because they can come to with us, and about 1% of the 175,000 folks that go through TAP every year are military spouses, but that's not a very good take rate on it. And the point is, it's not designed for them. It's designed for us.
Right.
Yeah. Most of the ones that are coming with us because we're retiring, and they know we won't pay attention, so they're taking notes for us. I mean, be honest. So that's where we're going in the military spouse space. Really trying to hammer that home.
So when you talk about like the fellows in the different agencies, like such as yourself, and right now you're talking obviously about transition, which is I could see where DOL would kind of want to be a part of that. One of the things that, in case you didn't know this, but here on the outside, VA Medical does not talk to VA claims as far as disbursements of funds, and neither of them talk to education. The systems just flat out don't fucking talk. Now, that being the case, are you all talking, when it comes to transition, as these, as the senior enlisted fellows in these areas? You're smiling, so you probably know that the outside that doesn't talk. Hopefully you're doing something on the inside. And are those other agencies working together in the same goal for transition, or does each one have its own track of here's what we think transition looks like?
Well, so I'll give you kind of the big picture on that, and then I'll bring it down into a smaller shot group for you. There are quite a few, depending on the kind of product line, interagency working groups between Department of Defense, Department of Labor, VA, Small Business Administration, Department of Education. I know I'm missing a couple other interagency partners that are in there that continually come together and look at what does the transition space look like? How does it need to change? What curriculum needs to come into it? What additional resources need to come into it? And what is not working so well? Now, back that off and shift gears a little bit and then look at the fellows. So we just got our second fellow, and I talked to him about an hour ago, gave him a warno. Hey, bro, you're going to be on after me. So Jeff is a...
Make sure you send me their numbers.
I got they're coming out. So Jeff is in there now. He's in VBA, which is the Veterans Benefit Administration.
Okay.
Really going hard after the transition space, the linking and helping the services to understand things like your transition physical and filing your claims and doing that ahead of DD-214 time, so that the goal of VBA and the Undersecretary for VBA's desire that your benefits start day one on transition, not you're waiting months.
Benefits delivery at discharge.
Right.
Roger that.
As opposed to bad benefits after discharge, which is bad.
Yeah.
So Jeff is going hard down that road to really make those connections that on the employment side we've been working at for quite a while, but he's the second one in and is getting his feet under him and going after it. I tell you though, he's making a lot of progress and headway, and VA is doing a lot of things. The START program, where they're calling our recently transitioned veterans at the 30, 60, 90-day mark and really going through, okay, what services are you not getting that you need? Where are those services housed? And that's an interagency. VA's doing the calls because they have the budget in the call centers. But if it's employment related, they're referring directly to Department of Labor and the state workforce agency veteran employment specialists that are out there. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. If it's small business related, they're going straight to SBA for the Veteran Small Business Administration, loans to keep them going through this current COVID response. Big thing. Yeah. And I sent a document that has a bunch of links on that to Victoria to put on your guys' site. So that's getting better. and we're always trying to improve the foxhole, right? And I think that's the benefit of having us, the senior enlisted leaders in there, because don't get me wrong, I mean, there's bureaucracy at all levels, but at the end of the day, it's got to be about the customer. It's got to be about the service member and their family that is transitioning after their first term or retiring out. It doesn't matter. They all deserve the same level of support with benefit. And that's really what we're kind of after in our role. So, and then our education folks are really working some initiatives right now to crosswalk the services institutional education programs with something that's called SIP codes with each of the colleges.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you're familiar with that. So that's got some exciting potential. No longer will we have to go pay for our transcript to be evaluated.
Oh yeah, right, exactly. To get it evaluated and converted and all that good stuff. Yeah, I had to do that. Last time I applied.
We will be in a very, very, very good place as a cohort of transitioning service members into the veteran status from a higher education, a credentialed and experiential learned apprentice position, and with the benefits that go with us lifelong through VA, SBA, and Department of Labor. So,
quick bridge question on that. So, since you're talking about education and DOL together, right now there's a lot of veterans. That when they want to do something, right? So, hey, if I got laid off of this, let me go change a career field or something. Hey, I got voc rehab, right? Let me go tap into that or GI Bill, whatever. But a lot of folks, especially the veterans that are, I'd say my age, over 35, are like, might want to go to voc rehab. Is there something that's directly correlated with DOL and those coming out of voc rehab that they're sharing at all that we could share with our audience?
Yeah. So one of the products that I sent over to you guys is a placemat that talks about the Department of Labor funded and resourced state workforce agency American Job Centers. So there's 2,400 of them, over 2,400 across all the states and territories of the country. In those American Job Centers, there are specific staff, local veteran employment representatives, and disabled veteran outreach specialists that provide priority service to veterans, regardless of disability rating. Well, for a disabled veteran, you got to be a certain disability rating, but a local veteran employment status, if you have a DD-214, you are afforded priority service for everything from employment outreach and reemployment to upskilling. You come in and the industry that you were a part of is no longer part of the up and coming industries of the country based on economic recovery models. Let's upskill you and move you into some other industry that is really being sought after as part of COVID response and the COVID recovery, or other industries that are in need. So that is really the kind of touch point from labor getting into the local employment ecosystem. And that's everywhere across the country. There's a link that's on that placemat that you come up with a map and you drill down on the state and they'll give you the number and where they're actually located. So that's probably the first point to direct veterans at large, those that are either in a employment situation now where they find themselves without a job, or those who are underemployed. So I got out and I took the first job and I didn't really know what I was getting into. I don't really like it and I want to move into something else. Those are resources that they can use. So what you're talking about in the VA sector is VRNE, vocational rehab program through VA. There is a very close working relationship with Department of Labor vets and VRNE for employment placement. One of the biggest things in VR&E that is not necessarily being utilized to the maximum right now is registered apprenticeships. So the folks in Department of Labor Vets are really pushing hard to transition some of the VR&E opportunities into apprenticeship domains.
Ah, right.
A couple of earning outcome statistics, and I've shared this with John, and he knows what they are. So right now in this country, the median income for a 4-year bachelor's degree, all degree fields, all locations and industries across the country, is right about $63,200 and some odd dollars. When you look at the median income for all apprenticeships, all locations, all occupational fields across the country, it's just over $70,000. There's
interesting.
Yeah. A lot of folks are very interested in those numbers, especially some legislators. But the interesting thing that when you start looking at those two that isn't taken into account with just that median income is student loan debt. An apprenticeship, by definition, incurs no debt. You are paid while you're going through your training pipeline.
Right.
Whereas a bachelor's degree, not so much. So you take that $60,000 and then start lopping off at least a portion of it to repay your student loan debt. It exacerbates that kind of disparity with earning outcomes on the backside. So we're really, really trying to vector our transitioning service members, because our statistic of service members who are transitioning out of the military, all branches, almost 60% of them are high school degree or below. Even with the in-service, great tuition assistance and credentialing assistance program, still where we're at. So if we're looking at their ability to move into the employment space, we really need to vector them into an opportunity where it will upskill them, most likely if they don't want to take advantage of their GI Bill and go after higher education, which many of them do. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Then move them into an apprentice pipeline so that they have a long-term, very sustainable career that they can raise a family on and, move into that mid-sector kind of really skilled technical in the country. So that's one of the areas that DOL.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Hey, so Chris, first of all, to the audience there, and if you're watching on Facebook Live, the resources Chris talked about are on there, and you can access those resources that Chris has been talking about. Mm-hmm. So you talked about these job centers, and there's the resources on the screen. So a homeless veteran, if they want to try and get a job, what do they need to do? I mean, we have a huge problem with homeless veterans out there. What advice would you give to a veteran out there that is homeless in order to get up on their feet and get to work?
So 2 areas to vector in on. So part of the programs under Department of Labor Vets is a homeless veteran reintegration program. There's a substantial amount of grant money that is released every year through DOL Vets to all the states for grantees who basically build a homeless veteran reintegration program in their local community, tie it into the services of the American Job Center, and that really takes that veteran who's homeless through the process of coming off the street, getting into shelter, moving into a either upskill or reintegration into the employment environment. And you'd be surprised, man. I mean, I had a personal interaction with an Apache mechanic who's certified in aircraft frame here in Springfield, who is homeless. And
wow.
I'm talking to this guy and I'm like, what? He's like, well, short story, divorce, made bad life choices, substance abuse, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, no, but I get it. And I'm going through the whole reintegration program, and here's the agency that I'm linked in with. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know them. They're on the list here in the DC area. And he's like, I'm in an apartment with 2 other veterans. It's great. I got that, camaraderie back. I'm clean. I'm going back into the workforce. I'm getting everything squared away. And I mean, you're tired now. So that's probably the first location to look. There are also incredible homeless veteran programs through the VA, and they fund a large number of programs in the state level that bring homeless veterans off the street and put them back into a very similar type of environment where they move them into a transitional housing situation. They, if they qualify for the vocational rehabilitation, then they'll move them in that. They'll get their VA claims filed for them.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
Most of them don't even file and could receive benefits under VA. So those are some of the things that that both of them are really working with. So it's a real good thing to see. I'm seeing some questions up here.
Yeah, we got a question here from Wes King. He says, Sergeant Major, any programs or grants that you can recommend for a new veteran business owner in the field of agriculture, SBA, DOL, or any other places to look to help build a new business?
Yeah, so I was just in a meeting today that produced some links that I believe Victoria put on your guys' site for SBA. So the first tracks went through. Much of that money was filed through the Small Business Administration to really re-interject those appropriations back into the economy of the country and keep it going. That ran out. The second round of appropriations came in, and it is still there. There is a lot of money that is sitting in SBA waiting for businesses, small businesses, to take advantage of. The veterans portion of SBA is extremely engaged in processing as fast as they can any applications for small business loans, and those that have already received small business loans, in some cases, applications for basically loan forgiveness. So if they're using that money to keep their business afloat, and I don't know all the particulars with it, but it's on that one pager that I provided for the group here. That would be the first place I would look. The second place I would look, because of the industry sector that you mentioned, is U.S. Department of Agriculture. They have some incredible programs for veterans in agribusiness and are really pushing hard to keep the veteran population and grow the veteran population in the agribusiness community. My email is on at least 3 of those products. If you would like, whoever posted that question, I can link you with a veteran representative for the USDA directly to kind of get you connected in with USDA and understanding what they have to offer as well. So great question, though, because that's a huge industry sector that needs to keep going.
Hey, I got a question for you, Chris, and then we'll go to our. Hey, Ron, it seems like the Ron and John show is years, and the guy that always comes to a place that everybody knows his name. That's Sullivan, Ed Sullivan.
Sullivan.
I'll tell you what. I'll defer to Ed Sullivan because he's just a regular here at the Ron and John show, and I'll let you entertain his question.
All right. I had a question for John and Chris. When you first joined, were there still a lot of Vietnam veterans on active duty? And what would you say you learned from them that can be passed on to today's generation of soldiers, leaders, and veterans in regards to service, leadership, and transitioning?
So I think I'm a little bit older, maybe a lot older than one Chris Rick. So when I joined in 1982, the majority of the NCOs that I had in charge of me were Vietnam veterans. And back then, we'd only had a professional non-commissioned officer corps for about 7 years. In about 75, we started, coming up, we created the U.S. Army Sergeant Major's Academy, and the other services started these programs to develop our non-commissioned officers through education and everything. So what I learned from my Vietnam veteran NCOs was how to be a soldier, how to be prepared for combat, how to operate and be a professional, and how not to live like a dirtbag. I mean, they were all about standards and discipline. They were about combat performance and things like that. I did not get a lot of mentorship then on how to continue to build my education or what to do on my career and how to, go forward, not only through my training and education, but my structured self-study that I should have been doing back then. And I think it was just a different Army in 1982 when I joined. Now, we have some of the most educated senior non-commissioned officers that we've ever had, and they got to where they got because of this piece of not only training and education, but encouraging structured self-study as college or any other kind of skill that could be marketable on the outside. I'm not saying anything bad about our non-commissioned officers back then. It was just a different way of looking at things back then.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, you got anything to add?
So 1992 for this guy. So I was raised by two Vietnam vets, my father and my uncle. And what I learned from them was resilience and work ethic. And so that influence on the next generation of service member, I think was instrumental as well. And it's something that, I'll never take for granted, because I definitely just first day, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where my uncle was a drill sergeant for 2 tours, had me convinced that I would be beat to a pulp when I got off that cattle truck. And I didn't understand why everyone else around me wasn't like freaking out like I was. And once I realized that wasn't necessarily going to happen, I was like, okay, so this ain't going to be too bad. So, let me understand that, hey, you're part of something bigger than yourself. You're going to move into service, whether you do initial term or career, but it's service to a larger cause, and, take it seriously. So that was my, takeaway from that generation personally.
Yeah. So if I could close out, this is how I would, kind of compare the two. Nowadays, when someone comes back from a permanent change of station from overseas, they come down on the assignment cycle, and there's a packet that takes them through all the steps and to make sure they and their family are taken care of. And this starts about 6 months out when they start this transition process of coming back from overseas. And it includes things, not only how to clear your house and everything, but it's also how to get your pets back and stuff like that. Back then in 1982, and I was in Germany from 84 to 87, and I started getting down short on my tour, and my MPOs kept telling me, you ain't short until you eat in Germany and shit in the United States. To get your ass to work. It was all about that work ethic. Hey, just suck it up, buddy, and keep going, all right? Because your number one mission is to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps first, and then we'll worry about your personal life and your family, okay? Not saying there was anything wrong with it, just a different culture back then, almost 40 years ago.
Oh, that's good. So what was your question, John, that you had?
I forgot all about it now, man. Okay, so Chris, here is the issue. We have this career skills bridge program within the services, but it doesn't get used to the maximum value that it could be used to. And then you talk about, only 60% of service members are transitioning with college. I think we know that a big reason for that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, only about 30 to 35%, somewhere in there, of tuition assistance is actually used by service members that are authorized to use it. Could you comment on both of those, please?
Yeah, I mean, that both of those are great points. So the Career Skills Program, which is the legislative program that authorizes 180 days left of DD 214 in your transition space for a service member to participate in a employment skills program. And there's a ton of them that are out there now. Department of Defense has over 150 employment partners that have signed memorandums of agreement. And then each of the services also employ those career skills programs in a little bit different ways on their, installations in the United States. And a couple of them are finding their way OCONUS. The Army's the largest employer of skills programs. They call it CSP. And really what it is, you know, an industry that says, hey, look, we have a short educational pipeline that we want to run folks through, and then not guarantee them, but at least interview for job outcomes on the backside. And really the placement rate for things like the Microsoft MSSA program, which is probably the largest one in the joint community. I mean, they got a 90+ placement rate. What Microsoft doesn't take directly employed to them, they have industry partners that they fan out to when these folks go through I believe it's a 16 or 18 week kind of Microsoft boot camp and receive these Net Plus, A Plus, you know, Network Plus certifications that are industry recognized credentials. And then on the other side, go into a very, very well-paying career in the IT sector. So that's kind of the SkillBridge space. When you look at that space, and then you look at what is potentially an opportunity right of DD 214 in the larger apprenticeship space. So right now, through Department of Labor, registered apprenticeships across the entire country are somewhere in the 20,000 category. Now, there are state registered apprenticeships as well that are around 10,000. So the Department of Labor this year started an apprenticeship pilot program that is complementary to SkillBridge. So if you look at the DD 214 line, SkillBridge is on the left. If you look at post-service, that's an apprenticeship, because the SkillBridge, my salary, if I was enrolled in that, is being paid by DOD. I'm getting training from industry partner with a very strong potential of receiving employment before I transition. Some of the rub with that, John, to your point, is when industry goes in and they have a very extensive training pipeline, that's not conducive to large scale numbers of service members participating. Because, you know, if I'm a commander and I have 10 or 15% of my combat power that's in that transition window, and they all go to SkillBridge at the 6-month mark, holy, what am I doing, you know? So we're not getting a big take rate on it. So the industry sectors are figuring out, if I make it shorter in service, I'll get much more applicants that will apply, and I'll get much more throughput. Now, there's exceptions, some of the internships and fellowships and things like that, but that's usually for very senior folks that are transitioning to have a little bit more time. So what we're trying to do with that apprenticeship pilot is capitalize on that and link those SkillBridge partners to apprenticeship opportunities on the right side. And as that transitioning service member comes into that transition space, open up so 144 industry partners with DOD, 20,000+ registered apprenticeships in the post-transition space through DOL. So DOL is put in place in 8 locations across the services, the highest transitioning locations. They're called APCs, Apprenticeship Placement Counselors, that are briefing transitioning service members and then aligning them with their interests in the apprenticeship space. And it could be anywhere across the country. So that's part of an ongoing effort to expand the efforts in the transition space so that service members can take advantage of things like SkillBridge and keep continuing that into the right of DD 214 apprenticeship world. And then the second piece of education, that is exactly why the Army went to a credentialing assistance program, because the amount of TAP money or tuition assistance money that was being actually used by service members is not even close to what is appropriated for it. So absolutely that out to have voluntary credentialing, which we're finding is at, or in some cases based on the industry, above what the industry wants, as opposed to a degree to move into that occupation, was a great step by the Army, and the other services are moving in that direction as well. So definitely 2 areas that they're going into. It looks like we have a question.
Yeah, we got one from Erica. Yeah. She says, and which is a great question here. So what is the number one thing that employers can do to prepare for the employment of veterans? The DOL can be seen as a regulatory compliance agency that focuses on the laws when it comes to employees, which might cause hesitancy to reach out for support. And I mean, I got to agree with this. I mean, one thing, you know, because I was smiling when you were talking about helping the homeless vets and all that kind of stuff, because I remember being the one doing that work, and it sucks, especially when you got a full-time job and doing everything else. But so as much as I still put it on the veteran and say, hey, you know, get your shit in the pile, be ready and push forward, at the same time, employers also have to be able to understand a little bit about us, what we do and how we function. So yeah, what's the DOL doing to educate with employers?
Great question. And the individual who put that up, you're on point. I would say
she took the wood to your ass, dude.
I would say, from my perspective, after being in this role for a year, that of the 11 agencies within Department of Labor, 9 of them are strictly enforcement and compliance related. They're not programmatic in nature. It's an oversight function. My perspective, you know, that's me kind of looking on the inside. Department of Labor vets and the Employment and Training Administration and a couple others to a lesser scale are almost entirely programmatic related, meaning they receive appropriations to do stuff for basically development of the workforce and employment of the workforce. So vets in Department of Labor is that functional agency under that Assistant Secretary, John Lowry, who's a retired Marine Corps Force Recon guy and like super gets it, to really move out on behalf of the service member and the veteran. And there's a large effort in the Office of Strategic Outreach with a broad spectrum of employers across the country to really, and it's like the last of the 4 mission statements they have, is to promote employment of veterans and basically educate those industry sectors on why it is a good business decision to hire a transitioning service member or a veteran or a military spouse. And there's a lot of different ways they do that. And a lot of it is different based on the industry sector and the type of occupation and the geographic location. But a lot of it is through partnerships. And that's kind of the bit, you know, relational is operational. Oh, yeah. Especially when you have a whole bunch of states that want to do sometimes very different things in the employment space. So it's really about those relationships down and in the state workforce agencies that they continually nurture and propagate to make sure that we, transitioning service members and veterans and our spouses, are at the forefront of consideration for employment. So it was a spot on question. I didn't really understand it when I got over there and was like, this is a giant bureaucratic monster. And then I really started to get the why behind the what, understand, okay, this agency does stuff. It does do one oversight function. And this is a great segue into it because we got a lot of it going on right now. So our Compo 2, Compo 3 brethren out there, National Guard and Reservists, they are protected under the United Services Employment and Reemployment Act. It's commonly referred to as USERRA. All of them know what it is. During this COVID response, we have had an incredible number of National Guardsmen and a lesser number of reservists who have been activated specifically for COVID response. Early on, the Department of Labor vets, who is responsible for, as the federal agency, for oversight of that law to protect the employment rights of guardsmen and reservists, really stepped forward with employers to inform and educate them in this national emergency time. Because you can imagine many of the guardsmen and reservists that were leaving their job to be activated, the business was shutting down simultaneously as we went into let's stop the economy and everyone stay home. So we have this kind of very unique environment that everyone's found themselves in. So DOL vets, one oversight function, I would say, is in that space. And they're working really hard to make sure that our guardsmen and reservist rights are absolutely upheld from an employment standpoint, but that the industry partners also understand their their requirements as laid out in the law, and how to best kind of approach that with their returning guardsmen or reservists when they come back off activation. So that's going to continue to be a challenging area. I did provide a PDF that was put out early on, hung on the site. So any of the guardsmen and reservists that are part of your audience, they can go on there and pull that off. And it's got some links and an explanation of what's going on right now for the COVID response for USARA claims. So kind of leave it there.
Awesome.
So, Ron, you think we ought to hit him with some rapid fire here and see what this guy is all about?
I think we need to hit him.
All right, brother.
Yep.
All right. Chris is all things DOL right now, but he grew up as a medical professional. He's jumped out of airplanes and everything. First question I have, in people that know me know that I'm big on a nasopharyngeal airway. So if this stranger over here was having trouble breathing, could you still administer a nasopharyngeal airway to him and without any lube?
Absolutely. Barring he did not have any facial trauma, because that would be contraindicated. But if your grill was in relatively good shape, it's going in. And I would do you the solid of figuring out which one of your nostrils is larger than the other and not going with the small one, because that sucks. So, yeah, absolutely. I got you on that.
Oh,
hey, so the NPA is a pretty good tool to get people to wear their PPE, because when I was a Stryker Brigade Sergeant Major and we were getting ready to go to Iraq and we were doing our company live fires to get ready to go, I would stand at the entrance of the breach, and if anybody came down there and didn't have their Gore-Tex gloves on or their eye protection or didn't have their helmet snapped, they were getting an NPA. You want to get people to do some disciplined stuff, you shove a rubber tube up their nose and it'll get them in the right frame of mind in a hurry.
Try it.
What's your question, Ron?
Here's my question. All right. This is post-COVID. It's Halloween. Are you going as Jim Carrey from The Mask, or are you going as Dr. Oz, and why?
I'm going to have to say Jim Carrey from The Mask, because we have been working night and day at making these awesome masks. My wife has been like burning them out left and right. I mean, we got the sewing machine up there. I don't have one in here, but yeah, I mean, it's great. So I got all kinds of options there, man. I could totally, make that happen. But yeah, definitely Jim Carrey.
Hey, the last question I got for you, brother. You are a 𝗲𝗍𝗍 warrior. And anybody knows me knows that for 15 years I ran 𝗲𝗍𝗍 exercises where I took senior enlisted leaders and I would put them in a Ranger school type environment for 72 to 96 hours and under the same kind of conditions. Put them with people they didn't know. In Korea, it was people with different language and no interpreters, Put them from different services. I've had every service participate in this. Don't give them anything to eat, but when they're about their hungriest, Ron, I give them a special kind of food. So my question was, what was your special meal, mystery meal, and did you eat it?
It was a ball about that big around of rice, and in the middle of it was a ball of cat food. I ate all the rice and a little bit of the cat food. I didn't eat the cat food.
Hey, every cat on the planet is going to be boycotting your ass right now, brother. Get cat food away.
You know you're wrong. I was hungry, but I wouldn't have.
You knew there was chow pretty close, huh?
Oh, man. Whew. Yep. 𝗲𝗍𝗍𝗍. That's that's strong work.
Oh, validating our credentials to lead the men and women under us. Hey, Ron, I saw something on Twitter the other day. Some person put on there, somebody was talking about, why should sergeant majors have to run? We made it and everything. And somebody else put on there, well, I thought once you get to the rank of E7, you didn't have to do any of that stuff anymore. And and my good buddy 𝗲𝗍𝗍𝗿𝗶 both jumped on that and said, let me tell you something, it's about validating your credentials. But they had a point there, because there's some leaders out there that think they get to a certain point that it's do as I say and not as I do. And I wanted to make sure through these 𝗔𝗍𝗍 exercises, and Chris is a veteran of it, and he was one of the go-to guys I had out there, that it's all about us setting the example for those young men and women, much like he's doing now, you know, looking out for these men and women as they go through transition and look for employment. You good over there, brother?
Yeah, I don't know who did that one.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's not it. Either way, what are we looking here, John? We ready to close her on out?
Yeah. Hey, Chris. I'm normally what we do. I say something, we'll turn it over to you, and then Ron will close us out. I just wanted to say, brother, thank you so much for the job you do at Department of Labor, Veterans Employment and Training Service. You have been just a phenomenal battle buddy with me when I was the SEAC. And to this day, you know, we were just in Tampa together. It seems like a lifetime ago, but it was actually, what, 2 months ago we were in Tampa, and you had the assistant secretary with you. So I appreciate what you do, brother. And we're going to continue to use you as a tool, if you don't mind. There were the questions we didn't get through to Ron. I think we ought to make sure Chris gets them, so Chris can entertain the questions that we weren't able to ask. But thank you on behalf of everybody, the Veterans Lending Group team and the Ron and John Show. I want to say thank you for everything you do, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it, John and Ron. It was absolutely my honor and privilege to help to try to kind of get the word out, inform and educate, you know, not only our veterans, but those that are watching that are still in service that will be transitioning at some point, right? We're all transition service members.
Right.
And the military spouses. I mean, you know, this is a family affair for me. All my nephews, grandfathers, fathers have all served. My son's on deck. You know, my wife and all of my nieces and extended family are either veterans serving or married to a service member. So, you know, this is really, in my opinion, and you know, an opportunity to pay back to the services and into that transition space, because as we transition, we are our best recruiter to maintain that all volunteer force going forward. And
Absolutely.
That's, you know, what it's all about. So thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. And I look forward to following up on all the chats we didn't get to and the questions.
Yep, absolutely. And again, on behalf of Veterans Lending Group, who are the proud providers of the Ron and John Show, just to let you know, put it out there. If you're looking for a refinance, a new purchase, or education, come look us up at veteranslendinggroup.com, 𝗲𝗏𝗪𝘆_bootcamp.com. If you're wondering and you're on the fence on who you want to choose, just remember that we are the special operations VA financing. We wouldn't be here if the old 𝗙𝗵𝗵 wasn't here as well. So something we can do to help you out, we're here for you as well. And you can see, you know, we're more than just loans. We really care about the community and bringing this education to the masses. And you know, these programs, this programming is here for you. It's anchored into our site so that you can come back and share this information with anybody in the future if they weren't able to catch it live. And I think there's on this one, there's going to be a lot of follow on and follow up. Of people that we can utilize this as a direct resources, you know, to folks like the USO, to a work of honor, to the local Washington State EAV and all the Veterans Affairs for each state as well across the country. So, Chris, man, thank you so much. It's you know, there's from somebody who has transitioned out before, seeing where, you know, where we come, where there were literally no resources available to us, or not that we knew about, to where, you know, just 5 years ago when I jumped in to try to do what we could because we wanted to see our brothers and sisters from killing themselves and hurting themselves, all the way to now, and to see and to hear that, I think the big cry usually is that they don't give a damn. You know, when you get to a certain rank, they don't give a damn about us no more. They just care about the mission and what's happening. And it's, I have to tell you, my heart is singing right now because y'all are showing that you do give a damn. You know, John, and these are your peer group, man, and to brother to see and to know that there are leaders out there that you've been able to work with, that you've been able to influence, that are doing great work, like Chris here and the others that we've had on our show. And that example, that trickle down, while it's going to take a while, you know, but when that big wheel starts moving, or when that big naval battle group gets to where it needs to be, and Joint Special Ops and everybody come in, we're going to fuck shit up. And I say that because as a whole, with veterans, we're getting better as we get transitioned out. And everyone out there that used to think that veterans had something wrong with them, or you know, we weren't going to really amount to nothing, and see this homeless guy stuck on the side, y'all better watch the fuck out, because I'm telling you, the rising tide lifts all ships. And what's happening within these services, especially with the enlisted corps, just because you don't think that you have a college education, you see it. You see what's happening, and that's because of the hands-on leadership that we're given as enlisted service members of through the ASVABs and through all these different weird, funny tests that we're given. Well, you're seeing now that this on-the-job education, these apprenticeships programs are meaningful in a way that they are able to support their families, maximizing their benefits, and to get into a home with a low mortgage and get into a position where they're able to succeed with a little or to no student debt. So I think it's phenomenal what y'all are doing, man. Really, thank you all so much. And I'm really excited to see the future and where we're able to go. With that, I guess we'll since we're on here, we can pop back and answer a few questions for anybody. We got a bunch of thank yous and like basically cheering from the crowd there. I could see on the chat line there, Chris. This is good stuff. Vic, if we could go back and see if there's any questions that we weren't for people that we weren't able to answer, if we could pop those on the screen. It's cool having a producer, Chris.
You're trying to like scroll through it and figure it out.
Yeah. So we've got let's see, we got one here. Oh, went away.
Yeah, what was it?
So one of the questions I saw earlier, oh, there it is right there.
Yeah. For jobs, one, narrow your scope, find a job that fits you and go for it. Network your ass off. Find someone that in that field that you want to go and connect with your friends. Post smartly on LinkedIn and network with your interests. 3, finish a degree and seek certifications. Learn the lingo and ask for assistance in making your resume a civilian lingo. Hiring Heroes does an excellent job at this. You know, I got to say is that I had just finished talking with counseling with a veteran that's transitioning into a career field he had no idea about. I knew very little, except that it was a very challenging environment. And that's the advice that I gave him. Hey, go on LinkedIn. Why don't you go ask these people? Just because you're blazing a new trail doesn't mean it's not a trail that can't be accomplished. You know, what would you say to someone like that as far as the power of networking, Chris, and what you've seen?
Yeah, so the networking piece is huge, and we generally in service don't do a good job of it for post-service employment. Like our network in service ain't doing nothing for us once we're out of service, right?
Right.
They have transitioned as well. So the biggest thing that I see, and it is generally our senior population that transitions, is they're very uncomfortable with, hey, how do I use the LinkedIn thing? What do you mean I need to like kind of get out there and talk about me as opposed to the team? How do I change that paradigm of language to really make the individual marketable in the employment space? And most importantly, knowing what they want to do. So the statistic is, as a transitioning service member moves into the deployment space, they're going to transition about 2.5 times over the first about 3 years because they don't land in the right place. They either go after money or they go after the first thing that's coming because they have a requirement for employment, and they end up finding out like the culture in this organization sucks. I hate what I'm doing. I'm
in there.
Underemployed. Like I should be running not that dude's job, but the guy like 3 above him. And then usually what we find though is that when they're making a transition out of that first or second job, they're moving to a higher level of authority and higher level of pay.
Right.
So why aren't we getting there out of the gate?
Exactly.
That's the key. And that's really where I like where Assistant Secretary Lowry's going, because he's looking at the task base in Department of Labor vets for employment perspective as, hey, we really, really need to accelerate the trajectory of our transitioning service members so they land at that higher income and higher career status going out and meet their full potential and don't settle for that, initial job out the door. And there are a ton of great organizations out there that do great work that DOL is now moving aggressively to partner with, double down on the ones like LinkedIn that are very good in that transition space, and make sure that they are at the forefront of our transitioning service members' consideration when they're moving into the employment sector. And
awesome.
Hey, two things I would add in that. So, first of all, especially for someone that stayed for a career in this institution, their professional military reputation has to be able to translate into a personal brand that is marketable in the corporate world. So the bottom line, if they are seen as a shithead on active duty, chances are they are going to be a shithead to try and get into corporate America, and they're not going to be marketable. The other thing is we're institutionalized. Some of us, I 1 month shy of 38 years. Normally, people that stay 25 to 30 years, you've never had to worry about income. You've never had to worry about, will I get paid this month? Well, a couple times there when Congress couldn't get their shit together, a few years back. But the bottom line is we were institutionalized. And when you get ready to transition, there's a fear of the unknown, one. And two, you don't know what you're going to do unless you've really built in a plan and everything. And so some of these guys, jump on the first thing available. And especially if they're one of those guys that had a poor military professional reputation, they jump on the first thing they can get just so they can know that they're going to get paid every month, and then next thing you know, they're not even in there, 6 months, and they're looking for something else,
Right.
That's just John Wayne Troxell's opinion. If you have a terrible reputation as a senior enlisted leader on active duty, and when you get out, it's not going to vanish. All right?
It's still going to be
people out what you're all about and everything. And if there ain't anybody out there saying great things about you, if they're saying you're a shithead, chances are you're not going to get that job you want to get.
Right.
Yeah. We got something from Candace here. Our other #1 follower.
Baddest real estate / military spouse in the world. She got me with Veterans Lending Group and got me my house. So we got all kinds of time for Candace.
Oh, yeah. Or she'll punch one of us in the face, and we definitely don't want that.
That's effective. Hey, so Cam read this while we were giving the chat here. So you're spot on. There are huge barriers to employment for our military spouses. A lot of them have nothing to do with the actual employment space. It's access to the education, the resources, the time, deconflicting that with their service members' obligations on the installation and whatever their mission set is. And I completely understand that. I will tell you that service senior leaders are very, very mindful and engaged in this. Military spouse employment is on the top 5 priorities for the Chief of Staff of the Army right now. So there's a lot of horsepower and resources and really time and energy being spent on, all right, what are those barriers and how do we reduce them? The director for the Army's basically child development and youth centers is engaged directly in the child care issue because that's a huge one. Where I'm kind of vectored in is focused almost exclusively on the employment domain because that's the authorities that Department of Labor falls under. But what we're finding is it's like a sea of information. There's a whole lot of folks out there that are doing great stuff in the military spouse employment space, but you have some folks that are aligned with certain demographics, like occupational demographics of military spouses, that really go after how do we connect, maybe professions in law or the medical field or these other areas to employment sectors. And there's been really a gap, from my perspective, in some of the work that we're doing from analysis on taking all of the information that's in the military spouse employment space and putting it into a package that is accessible and digestible for the military spouse population, either delivered in person through one-on-one facilitated employment, courses, given off-duty time, off installation in different ways so that they have access to it, virtually through a instructor facilitated, course that's online, similar to how we've transitioned TAP now that in-person TAP is basically shut down, and then hang it so it's open source so that all the services, service member and family programs, so the Fleet and Family Services, Marine for Life, Army ACS, can grab the information and the facilitator's guide and then pull it down and schedule courses on installations and provide that to military spouses for employment. That is the goal of Department of Labor, and that's what they're doing right now with developing that military spouse employment curriculum, kind of moving forward, is not recreating what's already out there in the space, because there's some great stuff. It's bringing it together in a way that is accessible and digestible to the military spouse population and delivering it where it meets them. And you bring up absolutely great points, and we're very aware of it. So thanks for your continued support in that.
Chris, here's one that popped up, and which I think is very unique about this question is from Blanca. Number one, that sounds like she's looking out for someone, but also in a lot of the units that we've all served in, and this is a very common question, and and it can go all over the place. But this is we hear it all the time, but this is how I feel 11Bs really feel, an infantryman. And I see Chris is already getting ready to answer this one. So what job opportunities are a good match for 11 Bravo infantry soldiers in the civilian world besides LEO, right? That's the big thing. What else am I going to do besides be a door kicker?
Yeah, gotcha. I have multiple conversations about this weekly with a lot of my peers and cohorts. So I'm going to give you a little bit of kind of statistical information, and then we'll dive into this. So this year in the veteran supplement to the Bureau of Labor Statistics employment data, every year there's a veteran supplement that's sponsored by the Department of Labor and the VA that looks at the veteran employment space of the country. 40% of the employed veterans in that supplement are aligned in occupations that are in management, professional, and other related occupations. Leadership. That is the secret sauce. That is the game changer that really transcends the I'm an 11 Bravo, I'm a 68 Whiskey, I'm a whatever. And it is the thing that the services do from day one, almost, that is very unique as opposed to private industry. Unless they're a very large organization or they have just this like really awesome culture, they don't necessarily invest a whole lot in leader development of their workforce. It's just kind of, hey, Bob's been here the longest, he's going to be in charge and makes seniority and gets promoted. So that is really one of the things that transcends. And the opportunities for employment in that sector are astronomical. And there are some great in-service tools that will prepare our transitioning leaders in the private sector. They call them managers, under the in-service credentialing platform. And there's a placemat that I sent the team that is hung in the resources that does an actual kind of crosswalk to a screenshot of the Army's credentialing opportunity online, since you referenced 11 Bravo, that lays out the management E5 and above credentials that are free of charge to a soldier that are highly sought after in the private sector: project management, HR professional certification through SHRM and some other ones, black belt, all that kind of stuff that's in there from the kind of leader domain management. And that's really one of the direct correlating kind of crosswalks that isn't necessarily aligned when you start looking at the MOS. But when you look at the actual skills that that individual has and is developed in service from a very young age and what they do, that translates nicely. There are a ton of other opportunities that an 11 Bravo wants to go into that can upskill, do apprenticeship programs, use education opportunities in the private sector. But I just point that out because there's a very high percentage of veterans that are employed in that career field. And the 2020 April unemployment statistics, that was one of the lowest impacted career fields with the downturn in the economy. So that correlation of high veteran employment and minimal impact to downturn economy, that kind of would lead me in maybe I need to look at this in service and figure out how I get those management credentials going. So throw that out there.
Yeah, awesome. I think we're good.
All right. Hey, brother, thanks again, Chris. Hey, and somebody asked about the shithead comment. Hey, I'm just telling you, if the troops think you're a shithead and you're a leader in the military, okay, you're not going to magically get out of the military and not be seen as a shithead again. My point is this: there's nothing better to help with a professional military reputation than self-reflection or a 360-degree survey of how you're seen. It's easy for us to take constructive criticism from superiors and peers, but when subordinates give it to us, it can be pretty brutal. But it's also telling, and it's a good way for a leader to get a look at themselves and say, hey, I need to change who I am. I will tell you, I see it all the time of guys and gals that did not have a good military reputation when they retired, and they struggle to find work afterwards. And they start chasing jobs, and they can't figure out why. And then some of them come to me and ask me for assistance, and I'll just say, hey, look, brother, I'm here it is, man, So the point being is, if you're a stand-up person, you're a professional in how you do business, you lead through your example, you share in the hardships with your troops, you're probably going to have a pretty good reputation,
Yeah.
But if you're someone that lives by the do as I say and not as I do, the troops are probably going to be writing shit on the barracks walls about you or something. So anyways, I didn't mean to offend anybody out there with the shithead comment, but on the Ron and John show, we tell it like it is. And I'm just here to tell you, some people out there probably think I'm a shithead, and that's okay. The bottom line is, I can tell you that if you want to make it out here, then you better be that kind of leader that reputation can translate into a personal brand that's marketable out there. 100%. So I hope I've explained that. Chris, thanks again, brother.
On the flip side of that, I'll just say something real quick on that is what I was told a long time ago is do so well that when people talk bad about you, nobody will believe them. Right?
Yeah.
It's the opposite of that. It really comes out to don't be a shithead. If you were a shithead before, try not to be one moving forward because you just won't survive. It's always good to, do an asthma check. And if you're in the wrong direction, sometimes you just got to suck it up, take it on the chin. And as Brooke Villano says, swallow the frog, make the change, and move out. With that, thanks for joining the Ron and John show. We'll catch you all next week.
Thank you, brother.
PST. Chris, you've been awesome, man. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to be tapping into to you in the future and your resources. And if you need some resources, you can check it out right here. And I can guarantee you we're going to be spreading and sharing this information to everyone out there. Have a great evening. Be safe, y'all.
Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you right here next week on the Ron and John show.
Have a great one.